In a distant galaxy, far beyond the reach of human eyes, an advanced alien civilization called the Zorvath had been watching Earth for centuries. Through their powerful telescopic arrays, they observed humanity's progress with a mix of curiosity and unease. The Zorvath were not like humans. They were tall, slender beings with translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Their society was ancient, peaceful, and highly structured. They valued order above all else and believed that every species should know its place in the universe. For years, Elder Kale, one of the oldest and wisest members of the Zorvath Council, had warned his people about humanity. He had studied their history carefully, their wars, their inventions, their relentless drive to explore and conquer. To him, it was clear that humans were different from any other species the Zorvath had encountered. They were unpredictable, fiercely ambitious, and unwilling to accept limits. But many of the younger Zorvath dismissed Kyle's concerns, calling him overly cautious and stuck in the past. They are just another primitive species, some said. What harm could they possibly do? But then, something unexpected happened. A human starship appeared near the edge of Zorvath space. It was small compared to the massive vessels the Zorvath used, but it moved with precision and purpose. The ship identified itself as the Odyssey, and its crew requested permission to enter Zorvath territory peacefully. They claimed to be explorers seeking knowledge and friendship. The Zorvath Council was divided. Some saw this as an opportunity to learn more about humanity and perhaps guide them toward a path of cooperation. Others, like Elder Kale, saw it as a dangerous gamble. The Odyssey carried a crew of 4 humans, each chosen for their skills and experience. Leading the mission was Captain Ryan Carter, a calm and steady man in his early 40s. Ryan had spent most of his life traveling through space, and he prided himself on his ability to remain composed under pressure. Beside him was Laura Bennett, a brilliant scientist with a sharp mind and endless curiosity. Laura loved solving puzzles, whether they involved physics, biology, or alien cultures. Jake Miller, the ship's engineer, was a practical thinker who could fix almost anything with a wrench and a bit of ingenuity. Finally, there was Emma Torres, the medic. Emma had a warm smile and a kind heart, but she was also tough when she needed to be. Together, these 4 formed a tight-knit team, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. When the Odyssey entered Zorvath space, the crew felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. None of them had ever met an alien species before, and they didn't know what to expect. As they approached the Zorvath homeworld, they marveled at the sight of its shimmering cities, which seemed to float above the surface like islands in the sky. The planet itself was beautiful, with vast oceans and lush forests stretching as far as the eye could see. It was nothing like Earth, yet somehow familiar. The first contact between humans and Zorvath took place aboard the Odyssey. A delegation of Zorvath leaders arrived via a sleek shuttlecraft, their movements graceful and deliberate. They greeted the humans with polite words and gestures, though their expressions remained unreadable. Ryan welcomed them warmly, doing his best to put everyone at ease. "We come in peace," he said, repeating the phrase that had become a standard greeting for humanity's encounters with unknown civilizations. "Our goal is to learn from you and share our own knowledge." The Zorvath nodded approvingly, but Laura noticed something odd. While the aliens spoke of friendship and cooperation, their eyes betrayed a hint of unease. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she sensed that they were hiding something. Still, the meeting went smoothly, and both sides agreed to continue discussions on the Zorvath homeworld. Before leaving, the aliens presented the humans with gifts: a glowing crystal that pulsed with energy, and a small device that emitted soft, melodic tones. Ryan accepted them graciously, though he wondered what the true meaning behind these offerings might be. As the Odyssey followed the Zorvath shuttle to their planet, Jake kept a close watch on the ship's systems. He was always wary of potential threats, and this situation felt no different. "Something about this doesn't sit right with me," he muttered to Laura, who stood beside him. "They're too perfect." like they're trying too hard to seem friendly. Laura nodded thoughtfully. I agree, she replied. But we won't know anything for sure until we spend more time with them. Emma, meanwhile, busied herself preparing medical supplies just in case. She wasn't sure what kind of dangers they might face, but she wanted to be ready for anything. Her mind raced with questions. What if the Zorvath fell ill? Would their bodies react differently to human medicine? And what about diseases? Could either side accidentally infect the other? These thoughts weighed heavily on her, but she pushed them aside, focusing instead on her tasks. Back on the bridge, Ryan reviewed the mission plan one last time. He knew that first contact situations were delicate, requiring patience and diplomacy. But he also understood that appearances could be deceiving. The Zorvath might look peaceful, but that didn't mean they were trustworthy. As the Odyssey descended toward the shimmering cities below, Ryan reminded himself of the importance of staying vigilant. Whatever happened next, he vowed to protect his crew and humanity at all costs. When the ship landed, the humans stepped out onto the surface of the Zorvath homeworld for the first time. The air was cool and fresh, filled with strange scents that tickled their noses. Around them, towering structures made of translucent material glowed softly in the sunlight. Everything seemed so advanced, so alien, yet strangely inviting. For a moment, Ryan allowed himself to feel a sense of wonder. Maybe, just maybe, this encounter would lead to something truly extraordinary. Little did he know, the Zorvath were watching the humans closely, analyzing their every move. Elder Kale stood silently among his peers, his suspicions growing stronger by the minute. They are clever, he whispered to himself. Too clever. His warning hung in the air, unspoken, but deeply felt. The humans had no idea that their arrival had already set off a chain reaction within the Zorvath Council, one that would shape the fate of both species in ways none of them could have imagined. The humans followed their Zorvath hosts into one of the shimmering cities, their footsteps making no sound on the smooth, glass-like surface beneath them. The air was cool and carried a faint hum, almost like the planet itself was alive and breathing. Ryan kept his eyes forward, trying to appear confident, but his mind raced with questions. What did the Zorvath really want? Were they truly as peaceful as they seemed? Laura walked beside him, her head turning constantly as she took in every detail of the alien architecture. Jake and Emma trailed behind, exchanging quiet comments about the strange environment. The Zorvath led them to a large open chamber that looked more like a garden than a meeting room. Plants with glowing leaves grew in intricate patterns along the walls, and soft light filtered down from above, casting gentle shadows across the floor. In the center of the room stood a long table made of the same translucent material as the buildings outside. The Zorvath gestured for the humans to sit, and they did so cautiously, unsure of what to expect next. A group of Zorvath leaders joined them at the table, their movements fluid and deliberate. One of them, taller than the others and with faintly glowing markings on its skin, began speaking in a melodic voice. Through a translator device attached to the table, the words came out in clear, calm English. "We welcome you, travelers from Earth," it said. "Your arrival is unexpected yet intriguing. Tell us, why have you come to our world?" Ryan leaned forward slightly, choosing his words carefully. "We seek knowledge," he replied. "Our species has always been driven by curiosity. We want to learn about other civilizations, to share ideas and build bridges. We mean no harm." His tone was steady, but inside he felt a flicker of doubt. Was this the right thing to say? Would the Zorvath believe him? The tall Zorvath tilted its head slightly, as if considering Ryan's answer. "Knowledge," it repeated softly. "An admirable goal. But tell me, Captain Carter, how do you decide when to stop seeking knowledge? When does ambition become greed?" Ryan hesitated. He hadn't expected such a direct question. Before he could respond, Laura spoke up. "We don't always get it right," she admitted. "Humans make mistakes, but we learn from them. That's part of who we are." The Zorvath leader stared at her for a moment, its expression unreadable. Then it nodded slowly. "Mistakes can be costly," it said. especially when made by those who wield great power. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He didn't like the direction this conversation was taking. "Are you saying we're dangerous?" he asked bluntly. "Because we're not here to cause trouble." The Zorvath exchanged glances among themselves before another spoke. "Danger is not always intentional," it said. "Sometimes it arises from ignorance or carelessness. Your kind changes quickly. You grow stronger, faster, and more ambitious with each passing cycle. Such rapid change can disrupt the balance of the universe." Emma frowned, leaning forward slightly. "You make it sound like we're some kind of threat," she said. "But we're just trying to survive like everyone else." The Zorvath didn't respond immediately. Instead, they offered the humans food and drink, delicate dishes filled with colors and textures unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Ryan accepted a small plate cautiously, watching as the others did the same. The food tasted surprisingly sweet, with flavors that seemed to dance on their tongues. Despite the tension in the air, the gesture felt oddly comforting. As the meal continued, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. The Zorvath asked about Earth, its landscapes, its people, its history. Laura eagerly answered their questions, painting a picture of a diverse and vibrant world. She described oceans and mountains, cities and deserts, and the countless cultures that called Earth home. For a while, the atmosphere in the room softened and the humans began to relax. But Laura couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time she glanced at the Zorvath, she noticed subtle signs of unease. Slight shifts in posture, fleeting looks exchanged between them. It was as if they were hiding something important, something they didn't want the humans to know. Later, after the meal ended, the Zorvath invited the crew to tour their city. They walked through wide streets lined with towering structures, past gardens filled with bioluminescent plants, and into vast halls where Zorvath citizens worked quietly at various tasks. The humans marveled at the efficiency and harmony of it all. Everything seemed perfectly balanced, almost too perfect. At one point, they passed a group of young Zorvath who stopped what they were doing to stare at the visitors. One of them whispered something to another, and they all giggled nervously. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Guess we're the main attraction," he muttered under his breath. Laura smiled faintly, but kept her focus on observing their surroundings. As they moved deeper into the city, she noticed something unusual, a series of symbols etched into the walls glowing faintly. They looked familiar, though she couldn't place why. She tried to ask one of their guides about them, but the Zorvath simply smiled and changed the subject. By the time the tour ended, the sun, or whatever passed for a sun on this planet, was beginning to set. The sky turned shades of purple and gold, bathing the city in a surreal glow. The humans returned to their ship, exhausted but intrigued. Back inside the Odyssey, they gathered in the main cabin to discuss everything they'd seen and heard. "They're hiding something," Laura said firmly. "I don't know what it is, but I can feel it." Ryan nodded. "I agree, they're friendly on the surface, but there's tension underneath, like they're walking on eggshells around us." Jake leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Mangoes, maybe they're scared of us," he suggested. "I mean, Elder Kale sure seemed worried about humanity during that first meeting. What if they think we're going to take over or something?" Emma shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. We're outnumbered and outgunned here. They've got way more advanced tech than we do. Why would they be afraid of us?" "Exactly," Ryan said. "Which is why we need to figure out what's really going on. Something isn't adding up." For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of their situation settled heavily on their shoulders. They were far from home, surrounded by an alien species that didn't fully trust them. And somewhere in the back of their minds, they couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter might not end peacefully. Unbeknownst to the humans, the Zorvath Council was having a similar discussion in their own chambers. Elder Kale stood before his peers, his voice low but urgent. "They are clever," he said again, "too clever. If we do not act soon, they will discover our secrets, and then it may be too late." The other council members murmured among themselves, torn between caution and curiosity. Some argued that the humans posed no immediate threat and should be allowed to leave unharmed. Others sided with Kale, insisting that humanity's potential danger outweighed any benefits of cooperation. As the debate raged on, one thing became clear. The Zorvath were divided, and that division would shape the days and decisions to come. The next morning, the humans were invited back to the Zorvath city for a second day of meetings. This time they were taken to an orbital research station that floated high above the planet's surface. The station was enormous, shaped like a ring with glowing panels lining its outer edge. As the shuttle carrying the Odyssey crew approached, Jake leaned forward, his eyes wide with fascination. "This thing looks like something out of a sci-fi movie," he muttered. Laura nodded, equally impressed. Even Ryan, who usually kept his emotions in check, couldn't hide his awe. When they arrived, the Zorvath greeted them warmly and led them through a series of corridors filled with advanced machinery and alien technology. The air inside the station hummed faintly and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. It was clear that this place was the heart of Zorvath innovation, a hub where their brightest minds worked on projects that could shape the future of their species. The humans were given a tour of several labs, each focused on different areas of research. In one room, scientists studied strange creatures suspended in tanks of glowing liquid. In another, engineers tinkered with devices that emitted beams of light capable of cutting through solid metal. Laura was particularly intrigued by a lab dedicated to energy systems. She watched as the Zorvath demonstrated how they harnessed power from their star, using technology far beyond anything humanity had developed. "This is incredible," Laura whispered to Ryan as they moved from one lab to the next. "If we could learn even a fraction of what they know, it could change everything for us." Ryan nodded but remained cautious. "Don't get too excited yet," he said quietly. "We still don't know what they want in return." As the tour continued, Jake noticed something unusual. Many of the Zorvath workers seemed uneasy in the presence of the humans. They avoided eye contact and whispered among themselves when they thought no one was listening. Jake nudged Emma and nodded toward a group of Zorvath technicians. "See that?" he asked. "They're acting weird again." Emma frowned. "You're right," she said. "It's like they're scared of us or something." Before they could speculate further, their guide led them into a large observation deck with windows that offered a breathtaking view of the planet below. The Zorvath explained that this area was used for monitoring weather patterns and other environmental changes. But as the humans admired the view, Laura spotted something odd, a series of symbols etched into the glass near the window. They were similar to the ones she'd seen during their tour of the city. "Excuse me," Laura said, turning to their guide. "What do these symbols mean?" The Zorvath hesitated for a moment, then smiled politely. "They are part of our history," it replied vaguely. "Ancient writings passed down through generations." Laura wasn't satisfied with the answer, but she decided not to press the issue. Instead, she made a mental note to investigate further once they returned to the ship. Later, the Zorvath invited the humans to participate in a simulated experiment, designed to test their problem-solving skills. The simulation involved a mock crisis, a sudden power outage that caused several systems on the station to malfunction. The humans were told to work together to restore power as quickly as possible. At first, the situation felt chaotic. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the temperature in the room began to rise. But the crew didn't panic. Ryan immediately took charge, assigning tasks to each member of the team. "Jake, check the main power grid," he ordered. "Laura, see if you can reroute energy from non-essential systems. Emma, keep an eye on life support." Jake sprang into action, examining the station's control panels with practiced ease. He quickly identified the source of the problem, a damaged relay switch, and began working to repair it. Meanwhile, Laura analyzed the station's energy flow, her fingers flying over the alien interface as she figured out how to redirect power. Emma monitored the station's vital systems, ensuring that nothing critical failed while the others worked. Within minutes, the humans had restored power to the affected areas. The Zorvath watched silently, their expressions unreadable. When the simulation ended, one of the leaders stepped forward and addressed the crew. Impressive, it said. Your ability to adapt under pressure is remarkable. Ryan smiled, modestly. Just doing our job, he replied. But deep down he wondered why the Zorvath had put them through such a test. Was it truly meant to measure their skills, or was there another purpose behind it? Afterward, the humans were given some free time to explore parts of the station on their own. Laura wandered into a quieter section of the facility, hoping to find more clues about the mysterious symbols she'd seen earlier. As she walked, she overheard fragments of conversation between two Zorvath researchers. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices barely audible. They are more resourceful than we anticipated, one of them said. If they discover the truth, the other interrupted sharply. They must not. Elder Kale has made that clear. Laura froze, her heart pounding. She pressed herself against the wall, straining to hear more, but the Zorvath abruptly stopped talking and moved away, leaving her alone in the corridor. Her mind raced as she processed what she'd just heard. What truth were they hiding? And why was Elder Kale so determined to keep it secret? Back in the main area of the station, Jake and Emma discussed their own observations. Something's not right here, Jake said. I've been keeping an eye on the systems, and I swear I saw signs of surveillance. Like they're watching us even when we're not around, Emma nodded grimly. I've noticed it too. Every time we ask a question, they dodge it or change the subject. It's like they're trying to distract us. When Laura rejoined the group, she shared what she'd overheard. The crew exchanged worried glances. Whatever the Zorvath were hiding, it was clear that they didn't trust the humans enough to reveal it. That evening, as they prepared to leave the station and return to the Odyssey, Ryan gathered his team for a private discussion. We need to stay sharp, he said. The Zorvath are testing us, not just our skills, but our intentions. We have to prove that we're here in good faith, but we also can't let our guard down. Jake cracked his knuckles nervously. Agreed. And we should start looking into those symbols Laura found. If they're connected to whatever the Zorvath are hiding, they might be the key to figuring out what's really going on. Laura nodded. I'll analyze the data I collected today. Maybe I can cross-reference it with Earth's databases. There's got to be a connection somewhere. Emma sighed, rubbing her temples. This whole thing feels like walking on thin ice. One wrong move and we could end up in serious trouble. Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We've handled worse, he said. Just stick together, and we'll get through this. As the shuttle carried them back to their ship, the humans stared out the windows at the glowing station growing smaller in the distance. None of them spoke, each lost in their own thoughts. They had come seeking knowledge and friendship, but now they found themselves entangled in a web of secrets and suspicion. Whatever lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain. The Zorvath were not the allies they had hoped for. And if they weren't careful, humanity's first contact with an alien civilization might turn into something far more dangerous. Back on the Odyssey, the mood was tense. The crew gathered in the ship's main cabin, their faces lit by the soft glow of the control panels. Laura had already begun analyzing the data she'd collected during their time on the Zorvath station. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as she compared the strange symbols she'd seen with Earth's historical records. Jake sat nearby, tinkering with a piece of alien tech he'd managed to smuggle aboard when no one was looking. Emma paced back and forth, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, while Ryan leaned against the wall, his expression unreadable. We need to figure out what those symbols mean, Laura said finally, breaking the silence. They're showing up everywhere, in the city, on the station, even etched into the windows. It's like there's some kind of warning or code. Jake glanced up from his work. A warning about what? Us? Or something else? I don't know yet, Laura admitted. But I think it's connected to whatever the Zorvath are hiding. That conversation I overheard, Elder Kale doesn't want us finding out the truth. Ryan straightened up, his sharp eyes narrowing slightly. If there's a truth they're keeping from us, we need to uncover it before they make their next move. Whatever it is, it's big enough to make them nervous, and that means it could affect Earth. Emma stopped pacing and turned to face the group. Do you really think they'd hurt us? I mean, they've been polite so far. Why go through all this trouble just to hide something? Because they're scared, Ryan said firmly. Trouble politeness, and fear makes people do dangerous things. We've seen it happen on Earth countless times. If the Zorvath see us as a threat, even if we don't mean to be one, they'll act to protect themselves. Laura nodded slowly. That's why they tested us on the station. They wanted to see how we'd react under pressure. And now they're watching us, probably trying to decide whether we're worth trusting. Jake held up the small device he'd been examining. It was round, metallic, and covered in tiny grooves that seemed to shift when touched. This thing might help, he said. I grabbed it while we were leaving. Maybe it's got something useful inside. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You stole it? Borrowed, Jake corrected with a smirk. Besides, they didn't notice. If it helps us figure out what's going on, it'll be worth it. Laura reached for the device and examined it closely. It looks like some kind of storage unit, she said. Let me hook it up to the computer. I might be able to access its data. As Laura worked, the others discussed their next steps. The Zorvath had invited them to another meeting the following day, this time at a different location, a massive structure near the planet's equator. The humans weren't sure what to expect, but they knew they needed to stay alert. Every interaction with the Zorvath felt like a test, and failure wasn't an option. Hours later, Laura let out a soft gasp. I think I've got something, she said, turning the monitor toward the group. On the screen was a series of images, diagrams of Earth surrounded by notes written in the same symbols they'd been trying to decode. Beneath the diagrams were sketches of human figures labeled with terms that roughly translated to unpredictable, adaptive, and dangerous. What does this mean? Emma asked, leaning closer. It means they've been studying us for a long time, Laura replied. These aren't just random observations. They've been tracking our progress, analyzing our behavior, and predicting how we might evolve. And based on these notes, they're worried about what we might become. Ryan clenched his jaw. So they see us as a threat, not because of what we've done, but because of what we could do. Jake frowned. That's messed up. We haven't even done anything to them, and they're already judging us. Fear isn't always rational, Ryan said, but it is powerful. If they think we're dangerous, they won't hesitate to act. We need to find out exactly what they're planning, and fast. The next morning, the humans prepared for their trip to the new Zorvath facility. As they boarded the shuttle, Jake double-checked the modifications he'd made to the Odyssey's systems the night before. He'd hidden several key components of the ship's propulsion system in case the Zorvath tried to seize control of, just in case, he muttered to himself. When they arrived at the structure, they were greeted by a group of Zorvath leaders, including Elder Kyle. His presence sent a chill through the crew. He stood taller than the others, his translucent skin shimmering faintly in the light. His gaze swept over the humans, lingering on each of them for a moment before he spoke. You have shown remarkable skill and ingenuity, Kyle began, his voice calm but tinged with unease. But such qualities can also bring destruction. Tell me, Captain Carter, how will your species use the knowledge you seek? Will it bring peace or chaos? Ryan met the elder's gaze without flinching. Knowledge itself isn't good or bad, he replied. It's how we choose to use it that matters. Humans have made mistakes, yes, but we've also learned from them. We're not perfect, but we're trying. Kyle tilted his head slightly, as if considering Ryan's words. Then he gestured for the humans to follow him deeper into the facility. Inside, they found rows of glowing pods, each containing what appeared to be humanoid figures suspended in liquid. The sight sent a wave of unease through the crew. What are these? Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. These are remnants of past encounters, Kale explained. Species who came too close to greatness and fell. They sought power beyond their understanding and paid the price. Laura stared at the pods, her mind racing. She recognized some of the features of the creatures inside, traits that resembled humans. Are these experiments? She asked hesitantly. Kale didn't answer directly. Instead, he turned to face the humans once more. Your kind has potential, he said, but potential can be dangerous. If left unchecked, it leads to ruin. That is why we must guide you to ensure you do not repeat the mistakes of those who came before. Ryan stepped forward, his tone firm. We don't need guidance, we need respect. Humanity isn't something to be controlled or manipulated. We'll forge our own path just like every other species. For a moment, Kale said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, he said. But remember this, the universe does not forgive recklessness. Choose wisely, Captain Carter. The humans left the facility feeling uneasy. Something about Kale's words and the sight of those pods stayed with them long after they returned to the Odyssey. Back on the ship, they gathered once more to discuss what they'd seen. They're testing us again, Laura said. Showing us those pods wasn't an accident. They're trying to scare us. Or warn us, Emma added quietly. Maybe they really do believe they're helping. Helping? Themselves, maybe, Jake grumbled. I don't trust them, not for a second. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Whether they're trying to help or control us, one thing's clear. They're not going to let us leave without making a decision. If we push too hard, they'll see us as a threat. But if we play along, we risk losing our freedom. The crew fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. They had come seeking knowledge and friendship, but now they faced a choice that would shape the future of humanity. The Zorvath had offered them a glimpse of their power and their fears, and as the Odyssey drifted silently in orbit around the alien world, the humans knew that their next move would determine whether they walked away as equals or pawns in a much larger game. The next day, the tension aboard the Odyssey was thick enough to cut with a knife. The crew had barely slept, their minds racing with questions about the Zorvath and their true intentions. Ryan called another meeting in the main cabin, his face serious as he addressed the group. We need a plan, he said. If the Zorvath are as dangerous as they seem, we can't afford to be caught off guard. We have to figure out what they're planning, and how to protect ourselves. Laura nodded, her eyes focused on the data she'd been analyzing. I've made some progress decoding those symbols, she said. They're part of an ancient language, but there's a pattern. Most of it talks about balance and control, how the Zorvath believe every species has its place in the universe. Humans aren't mentioned directly, but I think they see us as unpredictable, a wild card. Jake leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. So they're scared of us because we don't fit into their perfect little system, he said. That makes sense. They've got this whole planet running like clockwork, and then we show up, messy, chaotic, and full of surprises. Emma sighed, her expression troubled. But why go to all this trouble? Why not just leave us alone? If they're so worried about us, why invite us here in the first place? Ryan shook his head. Because they want to understand us, maybe even control us. That's why they've been testing us, seeing how we react under pressure, whether we'll follow their rules or try to break free. Laura added, and those pods we saw yesterday? That wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. They're showing us what happens to species that challenge them. The room fell silent for a moment as the weight of her words sank in. Finally, Jake spoke up. So what do we do? Play along and hope they let us leave? Or call their bluff and risk starting a fight we can't win? Ryan thought for a moment before answering. We don't play their game entirely, but we also don't provoke them. We need to gather more information, find out what they're really planning. And if things go south, we need to be ready to get out of here fast. Jake smirked. Good thing I hid those propulsion components. Without them, the ship won't fly, and they'll have a hard time stopping us if it comes to that. Emma frowned. But what if they find out? What if they already know? They don't, Jake said confidently. I covered my tracks. Trust me, I know how to keep secrets. Ryan gave him a sharp look. Let's hope you're right, because if they catch us, we're done. Later that day, the humans returned to the Zorvath homeworld for another round of meetings. This time, they were taken to a massive amphitheater carved into the side of a mountain. The structure was breathtaking, with glowing crystals embedded in the walls and a domed ceiling that revealed the swirling colors of the alien sky. Rows of Zorvath citizens filled the seats, their shimmering forms creating a sea of light. At the center of the stage stood Elder Kale, flanked by other members of the council. As the humans approached, Kyle raised a hand, signaling for silence. "Today," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "we will decide the fate of humanity. Your presence here is both an opportunity and a challenge. Will you join us in maintaining the balance of the universe, or will you choose to disrupt it?" Ryan stepped forward, his posture steady. "We don't want to disrupt anything," he said. "We came here seeking knowledge and friendship, not to cause trouble, but we also won't give up our freedom. Humanity values independence above all else." Kale tilted his head, studying Ryan carefully. "Freedom is a double-edged sword," he replied. "It allows for growth, but also destruction. Tell me, Captain Carter, how will you ensure that your species uses its power wisely?" "We'll learn as we go," Ryan said firmly. "Just like every other civilization, mistakes are part of the process." A murmur rippled through the crowd of Zorvath, and Kale's expression darkened slightly. "Mistakes can be costly," he said, "especially when made by those who wield great power. Perhaps it is best if we guide you, for your own good." Before Ryan could respond, Laura stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Guidance isn't the same as control," she said. "If you truly want to help us, share your knowledge freely. Don't try to dictate how we use it." Kale stared at her for a long moment, his glowing markings flickering faintly. Then he turned to the council and whispered something too quiet for the humans to hear. The other Zorvath nodded, their expressions unreadable. Finally, Kale faced the humans once more. "Very well," he said. "We will offer you access to our knowledge, but with conditions. You must agree to limit your expansion and submit to our oversight. Only then can we ensure that your actions do not threaten the balance of the universe." Ryan clenched his fists, anger simmering beneath the surface. "We won't surrender our freedom," he said. "Not to you, not to anyone." The amphitheater erupted into whispers, and Kale's gaze hardened. "Then you leave us no choice," he said coldly. "You cannot be trusted." Before the humans could react, the ground beneath them shifted. Panels in the floor opened, revealing hidden restraints that snapped around their wrists and ankles. Guards moved in swiftly, surrounding them. Emma struggled against the bindings, her heart pounding. "What's happening?" she cried. "They're taking us prisoner," Ryan said grimly. "Jake, now." Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, a remote control connected to the hidden propulsion components. With a quick press of a button, he activated a failsafe program that disabled the Odyssey's systems remotely. Even if the Zorvath tried to seize the ship, it wouldn't fly without Jake's modifications. The guards hesitated, unsure how to respond to the humans' sudden resistance. Seizing the moment, Ryan used his strength to break free from the restraints, surprising the Zorvath with his determination. "Move!" he shouted to his team. The crew bolted toward the exit, dodging stunned guards and leaping over obstacles. Laura led the way, her sharp mind calculating the fastest route to safety. Jake brought up the rear, using his engineering skills to sabotage any equipment they passed, buying them precious seconds. As they burst out into the open air, they spotted a shuttlecraft waiting nearby, the one that had brought them to the YI amphitheater. Ryan sprinted ahead, punching in the override code to unlock the doors. "Get in!" he yelled. The team piled inside, and Jake took the controls, his hands flying over the console. The engines roared to life just as a squad of Zorvath soldiers appeared, firing energy weapons at the shuttle. The blasts struck the hull, shaking the craft violently, but Jake managed to lift off before they could be hit again. "Hold on," he shouted as the shuttle shot into the sky, leaving the amphitheater far behind. Below them, the Zorvath city glowed faintly in the twilight, its beauty now tainted by betrayal. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew regrouped, their hearts still racing from the narrow escape. Ryan paced the cabin, his mind working overtime. "They underestimated us," he said. "But this isn't over. If they come after us, we'll be ready." Emma sat down heavily, her hands trembling. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Jake grinned, though there was no humor in it. "Oh, they'll try, but they won't catch us, not with my mods." Laura looked at the others, her expression thoughtful. "This changes everything. The Zorvath aren't just cautious, they're afraid of us. And fear makes people do desperate things. Ryan nodded. Which means we need to warn Earth. If the Zorvath see us as a threat, they might decide to act sooner rather than later. The Odyssey drifted silently in space, its crew united by a shared resolve. They had escaped the Zorvath's grasp, but they knew the real battle was only beginning. Humanity's survival depended on their ability to stay one step ahead and prove that they were truly unstoppable. The Odyssey raced through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming steadily as it carried its crew back toward Earth. Inside the ship, the mood was tense but focused. The humans knew they had narrowly escaped the Zorvath's grasp, but they also understood that their actions would have consequences. If the Zorvath saw humanity as a threat before, they surely did now. Every decision the crew made next could shape the future, not just for themselves but for all of humanity. Ryan stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. "We need to warn Earth," he said finally, breaking the silence. "If the Zorvath decide to act against us, we'll need every advantage we can get." Laura nodded, her fingers flying over the console as she worked to send a secure transmission back to Earth. "I'm encrypting our message so it can't be intercepted," she explained. "But even with encryption, there's no guarantee they'll believe us. First contact stories are one thing, but warning about an alien invasion, that's going to sound crazy to some people." Jake leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "Crazy or not, they'll have to listen. We've got proof. Data, recordings, and those symbols you decoded. That should be enough to convince them." Emma sighed, rubbing her temples. "Even if they believe us, what then? Earth isn't ready for something like this. Our technology is light years behind the Zorvaths. How do we fight something we don't even understand?" Ryan turned to face her, his expression resolute. "We adapt. That's what humans do best. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way to survive. This time won't be any different." Back on Earth, news of first contact spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond, calling emergency meetings and forming task forces to analyze the situation. When the Odyssey's encrypted message reached Earth, it caused chaos. At first, many dismissed it as a hoax or exaggeration, but as more details emerged, including footage of the Zorvath and evidence of their advanced technology, leaders around the world began to take notice. In Washington, D.C., a group of scientists, military officials, and politicians gathered in a secure underground facility to discuss the threat. Among them was Dr. Helen Carter, Ryan's younger sister, who specialized in astrophysics. She had been monitoring the Odyssey's mission from Earth and was one of the first to receive the crew's warning. "This changes everything," Helen said, addressing the room. "If the Zorvath see us as a threat, they won't hesitate to strike. We need to prepare for war." The idea of war with an alien species was almost incomprehensible to many in the room. Some argued that diplomacy should still be the priority, while others insisted that preparation was the only option. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Humanity would unite under a single banner, the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, to defend itself against the potential threat. Meanwhile, Laura's decoded data provided crucial insights into Zorvath technology. Scientists worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the information, hoping to bridge the gap between human and alien capabilities. Factories ramped up production of new weapons and defenses, while engineers adapted existing systems to incorporate alien designs. It was a massive undertaking, but the urgency of the situation drove everyone to work harder and faster than ever before. On the Odyssey, the crew monitored Earth's progress from afar. They were relieved to see their warnings taken seriously, but they also knew that time was running out. The Zorvath weren't likely to wait long before making their move. "We need to find their weak spot," Jake said during one of their strategy sessions. "Every system has vulnerabilities, even theirs. If we can figure out how to exploit it, we might stand a chance." Laura nodded. "I've been analyzing the data I smuggled from the station. There's something strange about their command structure. It seems centralized, like everything runs through a single hub." Ryan's eyes lit up. "That's it," he said. "If we can disable that hub, we might be able to cripple their entire fleet." Emma frowned. Easier said than done. Even if we find it, getting close enough to shut it down will be nearly impossible. It's risky, Ryan admitted, but it's our best shot. And if anyone can pull it off, it's us. As preparations continued on Earth, the Zorvath were far from idle. Unknown to most humans, they had planted spies within Earth's governments decades earlier. These agents, disguised as ordinary citizens, reported back to Elder Kyle with alarming frequency. Their messages painted a grim picture of humanity's response: rapid mobilization, technological advancements, and a growing determination to resist. Kyle listened intently, his translucent skin glowing faintly in the dim light of his chamber. "They are adapting," he murmured to himself, "just as we feared they would." One of the council members approached him cautiously. "What are your orders, Elder?" they asked. "Shall we launch the attack now?" Kyle hesitated, his mind weighing the options. Humanity's unpredictability made them dangerous, but their resilience also intrigued him. "Not yet," he said finally. "Let them think they have a chance. Then, when they least expect it, we will strike." Weeks passed, and the tension between Earth and the Zorvath grew thicker with each passing day. On the Odyssey, the crew prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Ryan drilled his team relentlessly, ensuring they were ready for anything. Laura fine-tuned the ship's systems, while Jake modified weapons and defenses to maximize their effectiveness. Emma stocked medical supplies and developed strategies for treating injuries caused by alien technology. Despite their efforts, doubts lingered in the back of their minds. Could humanity really stand against such a powerful enemy, or were they simply delaying the inevitable? One night, as the ship drifted silently through space, Ryan joined Emma in the observation deck. The view outside was breathtaking, a swirl of stars and nebulae stretching endlessly in every direction. For a moment, they simply stood there, taking it all in. "What happens if we fail?" Emma asked softly, breaking the silence. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the stars, his jaw tightening slightly. "We won't fail," he said finally. "We can't. Too much is at stake." Emma nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "I just hope we're ready." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, offering a small, reassuring smile. "We've faced worse. Together we'll get through this." Unbeknownst to the humans, the Zorvath fleet was already on the move. Massive warships bristling with weapons and drones slipped quietly through the void, their destination clear: Earth. Elder Kale watched from his flagship, his glowing markings flickering faintly as he contemplated the battle to come. "They will fight fiercely," one of his advisors said. "Are you certain this is wise?" Kale's gaze hardened. "It is necessary," he replied. "For the balance of the universe." Far away, aboard the Odyssey, the humans remained unaware of the storm heading their way, but they could feel it in the air, a sense of inevitability, of destiny closing in. Whatever happened next, they knew one thing for certain: humanity's survival depended on their courage, ingenuity, and sheer will to endure. And as the stars streaked past outside the ship's windows, the crew of the Odyssey prepared to face the greatest challenge of their lives, and prove, once and for all, that humans were truly unstoppable. The first sign of the Zorvath attack came without warning. One moment Earth's skies were clear and peaceful. The next, massive alien warships descended from orbit, their sleek forms casting long shadows over cities and oceans alike. The invasion began with a deafening roar as energy beams rained down from above, targeting military bases, communication hubs, and power plants. Panic spread faster than the flames consuming buildings, and humanity found itself face to face with an enemy it barely understood. On the Odyssey, the crew watched in horror as reports poured in from Earth. Screens flickered with images of chaos, people running for shelter, cities crumbling under relentless bombardment, and skies filled with streaks of light as human forces scrambled to fight back. Ryan clenched his fist tightly, his jaw set in determination. "This is it," he said grimly. "They've made their move. Now it's our turn." Jake was already at work, rerouting the ship's systems to prepare for battle. His hands moved quickly over the controls, adjusting shields and calibrating weapons. "We're not exactly built for combat," he muttered, "but I'll do what I can to make us dangerous." Laura stared at the screens, her mind racing. She had spent weeks studying Zorvath technology, searching for weaknesses. Now, everything she had learned would be put to the test. "Their ships are heavily armored," she said, "but if we focus on their propulsion systems, we might be able to slow them down." Emma stood nearby, clutching a medical kit tightly. Her role wasn't glamorous. She wouldn't be firing weapons or hacking into alien systems, but she knew how vital her job was. "Just promise me one thing," she said quietly. "Don't get yourselves killed out there." Ryan gave her a small, reassuring smile. "We'll do our best." As the battle raged on Earth, the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, sprang into action. Fighters took to the skies, launching desperate attacks against the towering Zorvath warships. Ground troops used guerrilla tactics, striking quickly and retreating before the aliens could respond. Civilians joined the effort too, using whatever tools they had to disrupt the invaders. Humanity fought with everything it had, and then some. Despite their bravery, the humans were hopelessly outmatched. The Zorvath fleet was immense, their weapons devastatingly powerful. Cities fell one after another and casualties mounted. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity refused to give up. Every setback only fueled their determination to keep fighting. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew devised a bold plan. Using Laura's research, they identified the central hub controlling the Zorvath fleet, a massive command ship hovering high above Earth's atmosphere. If they could infiltrate it and disable the system, they might cripple the entire invasion force. "It's risky," Jake admitted as they reviewed the plan. "We'll have to get close enough to board the ship, and once we're inside, we'll be surrounded." "Risky doesn't mean impossible," Ryan replied firmly. "If anyone can pull this off, it's us." The team agreed to press forward, knowing failure wasn't an option. Under cover of darkness, or as close to it as space allowed, the Odyssey approached the command ship. Its stealth modifications, installed by Jake during their journey, helped mask its presence from Zorvath sensors. As they drew nearer, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. When they reached the ship, Jake maneuvered the Odyssey into position near an airlock. "This is it," he said, glancing at the others. "Ready?" Ryan nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. "Let's go." The moment they stepped onto the Zorvath command ship, the crew felt a chill run down their spines. The interior was eerily quiet, the hum of alien machinery filling the air. Glowing panels lined the walls, casting faint light over smooth, metallic surfaces. Everything about the place screamed precision and control, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding below. Moving cautiously, the team made their way deeper into the ship. Laura led the way, her eyes scanning for signs of security systems or traps. "Stay alert," she whispered. "They know we're here." Sure enough, alarms blared moments later, and squads of Zorvath soldiers appeared, surrounding them. The humans raised their weapons, ready to fight. Ryan took charge, barking orders as they exchanged fire with the aliens. Bullets ricocheted off walls, and energy blasts lit up the dim corridors. Despite being outnumbered, the crew fought fiercely, relying on teamwork and quick reflexes to hold their ground. Emma stayed close to the action, tending to minor injuries whenever possible. When Jake took a hit to his arm, she patched him up quickly, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Keep moving," she urged, pushing him forward. Finally, they reached the control room, a vast chamber filled with glowing consoles and holographic displays. At the center stood a massive terminal, pulsing with energy. Laura wasted no time rushing to the console and plugging in a device she'd prepared earlier. "I need a minute," she said, her fingers flying over the keys. Outside, the battle intensified. Human fighters launched desperate assaults on the Zorvath fleet, drawing attention away from the Odyssey. On the ground, resistance groups struck key targets, buying precious time for the crew. Every second counted. Inside the control room, the Zorvath closed in, forcing Ryan and Jake to form a defensive line. They fired relentlessly, holding off wave after wave of enemies. Sweat dripped down their faces, and their arms ached from the strain, but they refused to falter. "Almost done," Laura shouted, her voice strained. Just as the last line of code uploaded, a group of Zorvath soldiers broke through the defenses, heading straight for Laura. Emma stepped in front of her, raising her weapon. "Not today," she said fiercely, firing until her clip ran dry. Outnumbered and cornered, she made the ultimate sacrifice, holding off the attackers long enough for Laura to finish the task. Tears streaming down her face, Laura hit the final button. A low hum filled the room as the virus spread through the Zorvath network, disabling their systems. Lights flickered, and the once imposing ship began to shake violently. "We did it," Laura gasped, turning to the others. "Now let's get out of here." The crew sprinted back toward the airlock, dodging falling debris and collapsing structures. Behind them, the command ship groaned ominously, its systems failing completely. By the time they reached the Odyssey, the vessel was already breaking apart, consumed by internal explosions. Jake piloted the ship away just in time, narrowly avoiding chunks of wreckage hurtling past. As they emerged into open space, they watched the command ship explode in a brilliant flash of light. The sight was both terrifying and beautiful, a symbol of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Below them, the tide of the battle began to shift. Without the central hub coordinating their efforts, the Zorvath fleet faltered. Their ships drifted aimlessly, vulnerable to counterattacks. Human forces seized the opportunity, regrouping and striking back with renewed vigor. On the bridge of the Odyssey, the crew sat in stunned silence, exhaustion etched into their faces. They had done the impossible, crippled the Zorvath invasion and turned the tide of the war. But the cost weighed heavily on them, especially the loss of Emma. "She saved us," Ryan said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "She gave everything, so we could win." Jake nodded, staring out at the stars. "We owe it to her, to all of them, to keep going, to make sure this never happens again." Laura wiped away tears, her resolve hardening. "We will. Humanity isn't just tough. We're unstoppable." Far above, Elder Kale watched the destruction of the command ship from his chambers. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept into his mind. "We underestimated them," he murmured, shaking his head. "They truly are unstoppable." Tarian, battle wasn't over yet. But for the first time since the Zorvath arrived, humanity had proven that it could stand toe-to-toe with even the most advanced foes. And as the survivors picked up the pieces and looked toward the future, they knew one thing for certain: the spirit of humanity would endure no matter the odds. The aftermath of the battle was a mix of relief and heartbreak. Earth's skies were no longer filled with the ominous presence of Zorvath warships, but the scars of the invasion remained. Cities lay in ruins, their streets littered with debris, and the remnants of lives lost. Hospitals overflowed with wounded soldiers and civilians, while makeshift memorials sprang up in every corner of the planet to honor those who had sacrificed everything. The world was battered, but not broken. On the Odyssey, the crew sat in silence as they approached Earth's atmosphere. Their mission had been successful, but the cost weighed heavily on them. Emma's sacrifice haunted them all, especially Ryan, who felt the weight of leadership more keenly than ever. "We did what we had to do," he said finally, his voice low. "But it doesn't feel like a victory." Jake nodded, staring out the window at the damaged planet below. "She gave us a chance to win," he said. "Now it's up to everyone else to make sure her sacrifice wasn't for nothing." Laura wiped away tears, clutching the data pad she'd brought back from the Zorvath command ship. "Her bravery will change things," she said softly. "If we can learn from this, if we can use their technology to protect ourselves, it'll be worth it." As the ship descended, the crew prepared for what came next. They knew their return would spark questions, debates, and celebrations. But they also knew that humanity's fight was far from over. The Zorvath might have retreated, but they wouldn't stay gone forever. This was just the beginning. When the Odyssey landed at a secure military base, they were greeted by cheering crowds and dignitaries eager to hear their story. Reporters swarmed the area, cameras flashing as Ryan and his team stepped off the ship. For a moment, the overwhelming attention made them uneasy, but Ryan reminded himself why they were here: to inspire hope and unity. Standing before a sea of faces, Ryan spoke clearly, his voice carrying across the crowd. "We faced an enemy stronger than anything we've ever known," he began. "But we didn't give up. We fought together, not just us, but everyone on this planet. Humanity showed the universe that we're not afraid to stand our ground." The crowd erupted into applause, but Ryan held up a hand to quiet them. "This isn't the end," he continued. "The Zorvath underestimated us, but they'll be back. And when they come, we need to be ready. That means working together, sharing knowledge, building defenses, and never forgetting what we're capable of." His words resonated deeply, igniting a renewed sense of purpose among the survivors. Governments pledged resources to rebuild and strengthen Earth's defenses. Scientists worked around the clock to study the Zorvath technology Laura had recovered, unlocking secrets that could revolutionize human innovation. Factories churned out new weapons, shields, and ships designed to withstand future invasions. Humanity had been pushed to its limits, but instead of crumbling, it had risen higher than ever before. In the weeks that followed, the crew of the Odyssey became symbols of resilience and courage. Their stories spread across the globe, inspiring people to come together in ways no one had thought possible. Memorials were erected in Emma's honor, celebrating her bravery and reminding everyone of the sacrifices made to secure humanity's future. Jake often visited these sites, leaving small tokens of remembrance: a wrench, a note, or a photo of the team. Laura threw herself into her work, determined to ensure that Emma's death hadn't been in vain. She collaborated with teams of scientists, sharing her findings and helping develop new technologies based on Zorvath designs. Her efforts led to breakthroughs in energy systems, medical treatments, and communication networks. For the first time, humanity had tools that could rival or even surpass alien advancements. Ryan, meanwhile, took on a leadership role within the Global Defense Initiative, GDI. He traveled the world, meeting with leaders and ordinary citizens alike, spreading a message of unity and determination. His calm demeanor and unwavering resolve earned him widespread respect, and many looked to him as a guiding figure in humanity's new chapter. Jake stayed close to the Odyssey, overseeing repairs and modifications. Though the ship had seen its share of battles, he refused to let it retire. "This ship's got more stories to tell," he said with a grin. "Besides, you never know when we'll need it again." Far away in the depths of space, the Zorvath regrouped. Their fleet had been crippled, but their pride was wounded even more. Elder Kyle stood before the council, his glowing markings dimmed with shame. "We failed," he admitted. "Humanity is unlike any species we have encountered. They are unpredictable, adaptable, and relentless." One of the council members spoke up. "What do we do now? Do we prepare for another attack?" Kale hesitated, his mind racing. "For now, we retreat," he said finally. "We must reassess our strategy. If we strike again, it must be with absolute certainty of victory." Though the Zorvath withdrew, their presence lingered in the minds of humanity. The threat of their return loomed large, a constant reminder that peace was fragile and vigilance essential. Months passed, and Earth began to heal. New cities rose from the ashes of the old, their designs incorporating lessons learned from the invasion. Skies once darkened by alien warships now buzzed with human vessels patrolling and protecting. Children played in parks rebuilt from rubble, their laughter echoing through neighborhoods reborn from despair. At a ceremony marking the anniversary of the battle, Ryan addressed a global audience. "Today we remember those we lost," he said. "But we also celebrate what they gave us, a chance to prove ourselves. Humanity has always been defined by its ability to adapt, to overcome, and to endure. No matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how great the odds, we will always find a way to survive." The crowd cheered, their voices filled with hope and determination. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, and emerged stronger than ever. Elder Kale watched footage of the ceremony from his chambers, his expression unreadable. "They are unstoppable," he murmured. Perhaps balance is not maintained through control, but through coexistence." Though the Zorvath remained wary of humanity, a seed of understanding had been planted. For now, the two species existed in uneasy peace, each learning from the other. Humanity had proven its strength, but it had also shown something greater: the power of unity, ingenuity, and sheer will. As the stars twinkled above a recovering Earth, the crew of the Odyssey looked toward the future with cautious optimism. They had faced the impossible and prevailed. And though challenges lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: humanity's spirit would never be extinguished.